Shalom Aleichem, my dear friends around the globe, across the world. Chaim Alevsky here to share with you some amazing things that are happening over here today. Still ongoing, live. So we'll start with a related thought from the Parsha that the Rebbe related. This week's Parsha is Parshas Toldot. Parshas Toldot, or Toldos, as you might pronounce it. Toldos. In this week's Torah portion, it's the only time in the whole Torah in which the lives of our three forefathers overlap. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov lived together in this world physically for 15 years. There was a 15-year overlap in the lives of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And the Rebbe talks about that. The Midrash relates it, and the Midrash says that they actually studied Torah together during this span of time for 15 hours a day. So that's the Midrash. The Rebbe brought it and related it to this week's Torah portion, and then connected it to something else. In the Hasidic world, we have various customs also relating to Sukkos. On Sukkos, everyone has a custom that we invite the ushpizim, the guests. Every night, a different guest. The first night of Sukkot is Avraham, a virtual guest. The second night is Yitzchak. The third night is Yaakov. So the first three, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. In the Hasidic tradition, we have the tradition to also invite and talk about and study the Torah from the first three Hasidic masters. The Baal Shem Tov, as it relates to Avraham, the Isha Chesed, a man of kindness. His successor, the Maggid of Mezrich, who relates to Yitzchak, which is more in the line of Gevura, of strictness or might and strength. And then there's Yaakov, which is Tiferes, and that is the harmony and the beauty of the two previous forefathers. The perfection came into Yaakov, and so too in the Hasidic dynasty, it was the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad. So we have the parallel in the ushpizin, in the guests of Sukkot. And the Rebbe also compared them in the 15 years of their lives that overlapped, and said that just like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, their lives overlapped and they were alive together for 15 years, so too our Hasidic originating masters, the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid of Mezrich, and the Alter Rebbe, they lived in this world for 15 years together. And the Rebbe went on to talk about that. Now, I chose this point to relate a concept that's happening right now. It's an amazing world record that is happening. It's also connected to the Hayom Yom. Every day the Hasidim study a little insert in the calendar of the Rebbe. And this week, one of the inserts was about a Chassid, Rabbi Yekusiel Lepler, who would daven at length. We call it davening ba'arichus. He would daven at length, and so much so that some days his shacharis, mincha, and ma'ariv would be all in one stretch. There would be no break between the shacharis, mincha, and ma'ariv. So that was what we call an oved, one who serves God sincerely. And he had the time and the luxury to be able to pray like that. Or maybe it was on Shabbos. I think it was during the weekday. Anyway, this concept of this theme of overlapping, of continual stretch, is happening right now. As some of you may know, this past week was the Kinos HaShluchim. It was last Sunday. It was the annual international conference of Chabad rabbis from around the world. We gather for 4 or 5 days, starting usually Wednesday night, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, and a little bit of Monday. Usually it ends with a bang on Sunday with a banquet that people are invited to join. And on Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, the tradition is to make a Farbrengen. I asked today one of my students, do you know what a Farbrengen is? And he told me, yes, is this the day that the Rebbe got out of prison or something like that? Anyway, I sent him Wikipedia's beautiful description of a Farbrengen. So basically there's a Farbrengen every Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos. So this year they were going to do something novel because of the novel coronavirus, and we weren't able to be together anyway. So the idea was to make a Zoom Farbrengen starting from where Shabbos ends first, continuing for about 16 hours until the whole world is out of Shabbos, is after Shabbos, and then we will all be together on the same Zoom Farbrengen. So it began as planned, and it was going to end there. It began as planned on Saturday night. The pioneers of the Farbrengen were the Hasidim in Australia. They turned on their Zoom, started the Farbrengen, then it moved on to Asia, and then it moved on to Israel, then it moved on to South America and North America, Europe, South America, North America, and 16 hours later, we were all on the Farbrengen together. So, what happened then? What happened then was the start of a world record. That Farbrengen is still going on right now. It's still going on right now, and there's the max participants are 1,000 in the room, and it's many times it reaches that max. It stays at an average between 500 to 800 at all times, and these are Hasidim from around the world that are coming in whenever they have a few minutes, like myself right now. When they have a few minutes, they log in and they're listening to some Torah or some inspirational thought or story or personal recollection of one of the Hasidim from the Rebbe, and it's very inspiring. So I was going to talk a little bit, I was going to share with you something I heard today, only today, a few stories I heard from the people with whom they happened. So this is the first person, or a second person for you, but this is an everyday since Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, today's Thursday. It's going to go on until Shabbos, God willing, and then we'll see what happens. We're hoping that Mashiach will finally get the message that Umala Haaretz Dea Es Hashem, or God will get the message that this is the fulfillment of the verse Umala Haaretz Dea Es Hashem, and the world is filled with the knowledge of God, Dea Es Farbrengen, and we'll come and join the Zoom, and then we'll meet in person once again. Anyway, so some stories from today that I heard only today, literally Thursday today. Start out with one man. He's the rabbi, Chabad rabbi. His name is Meir Kaplan from Victoria, Vancouver, Victoria, British Columbia, Victoria Island. He related that he got a call from a mother who's telling him that her son is becoming a bar mitzvah in a few months, and she wants him to study with her son. And he said, sure, come, bring your son, let's visit, let's connect, and let's start the process. The mother related that her husband, the boy's father, had just passed away a few months ago, and the son wasn't in such a good mode, unfortunately, sadly, and she was trying to convince the boy to come, but he wouldn't come. He just wouldn't come to the rabbi. So he asked the rabbi, says, would you like me to come to your place maybe? Would that be easier? And so it was that he shows up at their home. It's a beautiful home in Vancouver Island. And as he gets out of his car, Rabbi Meir Kaplan, whom I know personally. As he gets out of his car, he sees that the garage door opens. That's a place, like, unlike Manhattan, that everyone has their own car garage, etc. The garage door opens. So he's thinking, okay, am I supposed to enter the garage? And then somebody waves him in from the front door to come this way. So he goes inside. They talk, they connect. The boy, this was a setup. The boy didn't know. And then the boy happens to come into the room, and he sees this rabbi there, and he's a nice guy, charismatic, charming man. And he connects with him, and he talks with him about the bar mitzvah, and fine. Meanwhile, one of the other household members, comes into the room and says, hey, why is the garage door open? Anybody have an idea? So nobody knew, but that was fine. So the conversation continues and finishes, and then Rabbi Kaplan goes out to his car, and as he goes to his car to get into the car, the garage door opens again. And I thought, this is very strange. What just happened? The garage door opened. Is somebody looking for me? At this point, I thought it was a ghost. Maybe it was, but that's not what he relayed. So he says, then he realized that it happened right as he clicked his car open. His car clicker, his car remote, had the same frequency as the opener, as the engine of the garage in their home. Now, what a coincidence is that? He realized that. The mother came back out. The son, they took it. They understood that there's something miraculous, marvelous about this situation. And it's definitely a sign from heaven that they should connect in a stronger way, which they did. And long story short, this family, the boy had a bar mitzvah and everything's fine, thank God. But they also became one of his greatest supporters, his biggest supporters. They needed a building, and they helped purchase the building, etc., etc. Stories like this, many of them, abound in this Farbrengen, where Hasidim, the Chabad rabbis, everyone gets a chance. Whoever wants to share a thought, share an idea. Some of them are more spiritual in kind. Some of them are with a material value reward at the end. But they're all in line with the idea, with understanding that the Rebbe sent us out on shlichus, and he's with us and watching out for us from above and beseeching God on our behalf as when and as needed. Moving on, another rabbi came on. There was Rabbi Lifshitz, Meir Lifshitz. I know him so personally well. I've known him since I was about 11 years old. And a few stories that he told. Some are wilder than the others. So these are stories that happened with him personally. The first one was when he was a child. First time ever he saw the Rebbe. He was about 9 years old. And he came with his family to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was giving out lekach, honey cake. And at the time, there was him and two of his brothers. So him and two brothers, and they were coming. So three boys coming together to the Rebbe. The other boys were older than him. He was the young one. And the father wasn't able to be there for whatever reason to get that piece of honey cake from the Rebbe. So he asked the boys, he said, will you please ask the Rebbe for a piece of cake for me? He asked the two older boys, actually. He didn't ask the younger boy. The younger boy was not part of this conversation. So Rabbi Lifshitz, who's telling the story, was not part of this conversation at all. He didn't know anything about it, but the two older brothers were asked by the father to get a piece of lekach from the Rebbe for the father. We call it lekach. Lekach is the honey cake. Long story short, the first boy gets in line, and he's thinking, okay, I'm gonna ask the Rebbe. Of course, that's a difficult thing to speak in front of the Rebbe it was awesome. It was an awesome experience. It was difficult. So he's in line, and then he sees his other brother, who his father asked, in the line way ahead of him. So he says, oh, he's going to do it. That's great. So basically, the first boy comes along and remembers that his other brother got into line first, but he was behind him. So the line kind of met. Basically, one boy cut the line and got in first, but unbeknownst to the other one, they didn't know who came first. So each boy thought that the other boy is going to ask the Rebbe, and none of them did. The first boy goes by. He doesn't ask the Rebbe for the honey cake for his father. And the Rebbe gives him a piece for himself. The second boy goes by, the second older brother. The Rebbe gives him a piece for himself, and he doesn't ask the Rebbe. The third boy, our Rabbi Lifshitz, who doesn't know anything about this and never saw the Rebbe in person before. It's his first time at the Rebbe. He walks by. The Rebbe gives him a piece, and the Rebbe gives him another piece, and says, this is for your father. This is for your father. He didn't understand why the Rebbe's giving him a piece for his father. He didn't even know that his father's not coming. He hadn't heard any of the conversation before with the previous brothers. That was story number one. Moving on. Story number two. From the same Rabbi Lifshitz. There was a time where he was going through a tough time, struggle in various matters in the community as related to Chabad. And he was very down and very upset. And he was almost on the verge of despairing. And thinking just came out of a meeting from the community council that they didn't like the Chabad presence in his city, and they were trying to move him out, etc., etc. As he's thinking, does the Rebbe know? Does the Rebbe want me here? What's going on? As he's thinking those words, he gets a call from the office of the Rebbe. This is way back then. Actually, it was Moshe Kotlarski, Rabbi Moshe Kotlarski, who takes care of the shluchim all around the world. My uncle, shout out to Rabbi Moshe Kotlarski. And he picks up the phone and he says, Rabbi Kotlarski? And he says, yes. And Rabbi Kotlarski says, no. How are things going? How are you? And he says, horrible. Worse than horrible. Glad you asked. And tell me more. So he told him about the situation and he said, okay, I'm going to see what I can do to help. And then he's about to hang up. And then Rabbi Lifshitz says, but Rabbi Kotlarski, I'm returning your call. Why did you call me? Why, you're the one who called. Rabbi Kotlarski says, honestly, I don't know why. I was just informed by the Rebbe's office, by the Rebbe's secretary, to call you and let you know that the Rebbe's thinking about you. That's it. Let you know that the Rebbe is thinking about you. That happened in that moment. Third story, almost as wild as the first two, or maybe even wilder, but it happened at the Ohel, at the Rebbe's Ohel, where I'm about to go tonight with some friends. We're going to see this. So Rabbi Lifshitz was in a situation in a city. There was something with a crazy story with the Torah scrolls in his shul that were stolen from the shul. And the good Torahs were stolen, and the Torahs that were old were left over, remained. So the community was all, hurt by it, etc., etc. And now one time comes the time he needed a Torah for his community, and he wanted to fix one of the old Torahs. And the president of the board of the shul said, no way, you're not touching that Torah. The other ones were stolen. You can't take this one. And he said, hey, I'm the rabbi. I'm not going to steal it. And there's more details, but I'm just going to cut to the chase. And it cost $8,000 to fix the Torah. Found a sofer, Rabbi Moshe Klein from Crown Heights, who heard the story this morning, today, while Rabbi Lifshitz was saying it, and verified it. And It cost $8,000 for him to fix. So Rabbi Lifshitz looks for a sponsor. Didn't have the $8,000. Contrary to popular belief, most Chabad houses need the support of the community and are struggling financially. And so too, he didn't have the $8,000, so finally he got one person to commit to it. And he sent the Torah to Crown Heights, to Rabbi Klein. He fixed it, and he was ready to go back. And he was about to take the Torah back, and he called the man for the payment, the sponsor. The sponsor suddenly said, "Sorry, I can't right now. Things are different than they were, and I can't pay for the Torah. I'm so sorry." But he was stuck, and Rabbi Klein needed the money to pay his workers. So he was pressuring him from that side, and he was pressured on both sides. He was in a hard place. Long story short, Rabbi Lifshitz decided to go to the Rebbe's Ohel. There was an ultimatum where he had to get back the money in a certain time, otherwise he wouldn't get the Torah back. It would have to be sold in order to compensate the people. So he goes to the Ohel. Sorry, I'm getting a call here, but I'm going to decline it. So he goes to the Rebbe's Ohel, and he gets there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Rabbi Lifshitz is at the Ohel at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's going to pray for a miracle to get these $8,000. And he comes, and he sees there's another man standing there. Another person who, someone he knew from Crown Heights, and he had a little desperation and chutzpah combined. And he walks over to the guy. He says, "You're the only one here at 4 o'clock in the morning. Must be you need something from the Rebbe. Let's make a deal. I'll be on behalf of the Rebbe. You pay for my Torah, the $8,000, and I'll pray extra hard to get you what you need. And the Rebbe's blessings will be fulfilled." And the man said, "What? Are you serious?" He says, "You're a good salesman, but it ain't happening. I'm not giving you $8,000, but nice try." And he tried again, it didn't work. He was, "Thank you very much." And he said, Rabbi Lifshitz says, "Here, take my card, just in case." And Rabbi Lifshitz leaves the Ohel. An hour later, he gets a phone call from this man. He says, "You won't believe what just happened." He says, "I just was leaving the Ohel. I went to the room where the Rebbe there was a video of the Rebbe playing, because I usually go there to see what the Rebbe's saying before when I come in, and afterwards when I go out, and I find some connection. I walk into that room. There's only one man in that room aside from me. You know who that was? That was Rabbi Moshe Klein, the sofer, the scribe, who you just told me about, that you owe $8,000 to." I was shocked, of course, and I asked him, "Do you know the story?" So he says, "Yes, absolutely. He needs $8,000. And he says, "I'm paying for it. Here's your Torah. It's all yours." Those are 3 stories from Rabbi Lifshitz. And I think I told you 3. Yeah. I'm going to share very quickly 2 very, very short ones that happened at the Dollars. So at the Dollars, 3. There was a video of it, you can see it, where there are people going by the Dollars, and a little girl is holding her sister. It's about a 10-year-old girl holding her 2-year-old sister, who's holding a doll. The baby is holding a doll. So the Rebbe gives the baby in her hand $1, and then he gives the doll $1. And the sister's saying, it's a doll. It's not a person. So the Rebbe continues to give it to the baby, to the doll, as if I know. And then the background story is that the mother related that this little baby had a tantrum before, and I know the family too. I know who they are personally. And the mother said that this baby just wanted her doll, and she was crying and screaming, and she was trying to take it away from her before she got to the Rebbe, but unsuccessfully. So the Rebbe empathized with a child. And it's okay to have a doll and to want it. That was one story. Another quick one was a rabbi comes by the Rebbe. His name is Rabbi Fogelman. I know who he is too. And he passed away recently, I think. And the Rebbe gave him a dollar. And then he gave him another dollar and said, Mazel Tov. It's like, Mazel Tov? He was thinking to himself, why is it Mazel Tov? He was an elderly man. And then he remembered that day, was his own anniversary. The anniversary of his marriage to his wife. And finally, another similar story. Somebody went by the Rebbe for dollars, and the Rebbe said, Mazel Tov. And he didn't know what the Mazel Tov was. He went back home and looked up the dates and realized that that day was his mother's birthday. His mother's birthday. Anyway, those are some short stories. My wife, when I told her I'm going to tell some stories about this round-the-clock Zoom, she said it reminds her of the saying, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Because Shluchim are getting up all hours of the night. They're on the Zoom all hours of the day, 24/6, and literally from all over the world. And it's really beautiful, it's special, and I thought I'd share some of that inspiration with you. God bless you all. Have a good day, a good week, good Shabbos, good month, a good year, a good always. Share.